Welcome to A News. I'm Leila Musimwa. Here are the top stories for today. Donald Trump and Elon Musk slam USAID as corrupt and incompetent at press conference. Benjamin Netanyahu says ceasefire will end if Hamas does not return hostages on Saturday. Pakistan Navy concludes a month 2025 drill with 60 nations. US President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk are taking aim at the US Agency for International Development, calling it corrupt and ineffective. Their criticism is a part of a broader push to cut government spending, with foreign aid now under heavy examination.
Speaking at the White House, Elon Musk, who now oversees US government efficiency, questioned USAID's impact, claiming it interferes in elections.
I think that there are some worthy things, but overall, if you say what was the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good. And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
President Donald Trump went further, calling USAID corrupt and pledging stricter oversight.
The USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent, and it's really corrupt. And I can't imagine a judge saying, well, it may be corrupt, but you don't have the right. You got elected to look over the country and to, as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things are right that they're paying or that things are honest that they're paying.
The remarks have sparked backlash, with pro-foreign aid advocates accusing the administration of undermining critical humanitarian efforts. Following Trump's order, USAID staff were placed on leave and its website went offline. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been appointed acting administrator. Trump says the cuts have already uncovered massive fraud.
We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, 2 weeks?
With Musk at his side, Trump has now ordered federal agencies to prepare for large-scale staff reductions, signaling further shakeups in Washington.
The US President Donald Trump has doubled down on his plans to take over Gaza to rebuild it as he met with Jordan's King Abdullah in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. They discussed regional security, aid efforts and the future of the Strip amid ongoing tensions. However, King Abdullah says Jordan has its own plans for Gaza.
US President Donald Trump and Jordan's King Abdullah met in the Oval Office on Tuesday to discuss Middle East stability and humanitarian concerns. While Trump reiterated his proposals to rebuild Gaza, King Abdullah announced that Jordan will reveal its own plans for the Strip. He also said that the Arab consultations are continuing, mentioning an upcoming meeting in Riyadh, and announced his country's plan to take 2,000 critically ill children from Gaza.
I think the point is how do we make this work in a way that is good for everybody? Right. Obviously, we have to look at the best interests of the United States, of the people in the region, especially to my people of Jordan. And we're going to have some interesting discussions today. I think one of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in a very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible. And then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
Trump, however, insisted that the U.S. would have Gaza and relocate its population, suggesting land in Jordan and Egypt as alternatives.
Really a beautiful gesture.
He dismissed concerns over Palestinian resistance, calling it a war-torn area that the U.S. would redevelop.
And with the United States being in control of that piece of land, a fairly large piece of land, you can have stability in the Middle East for the first time. And the Palestinians, or the people that live now in Gaza, will be living beautifully in another location. They're going to be living safely. They're not going to be killed, murdered, and having to leave every 10 years, because I've been watching this for so many years. It's nothing but trouble.
Trump maintained that Jordan and Egypt would eventually agree to host displaced Gazans, noting both countries depend on US economic and military aid. While Jordan remains a key US ally, Abdullah avoided commitments, emphasizing that Arab leaders would wait for Egypt's proposal before taking a position.
Our OB Shahbandar from Washington has more on Trump's meeting with Jordan's King Abdullah.
President Trump on Tuesday issued a direct warning regarding the situation in Gaza. If Hamas does not release the hostages by noon Saturday, the president said that, quote, all bets are off. The Israeli government is demanding the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas. Otherwise, the Israeli Defense Forces have said that they will resume combat operations. President Trump issued his warning with King Abdullah of Jordan by his side in the White House. The two leaders met to discuss the ongoing tensions in the Middle East. President Trump praised King Abdullah, a longtime American ally, as a great leader. The king brought with him his son and heir apparent for his meeting with Trump. In brief remarks, King Abdullah told members of the press that he and President Trump believe that despite ongoing challenges, that peace and stability in the region remain possible, and that he will work closely with President Trump, whom he called a man of peace. The Jordanian monarch also announced that he has put together a plan to accept 2,000 Palestinian children suffering from cancer and other illnesses for medical treatment in Jordan. When asked to comment on President Trump's plan to take ownership of Gaza and resettle Palestinians living there to other surrounding countries, including Jordan, King Abdullah diplomatically deflected the question and said that further discussions must take place with Egypt and other Arab countries on Gaza, and that he must take into account the best interests of the Jordanian people. President Trump said that his plan will include large-scale economic development in Gaza, but it would take years. The president said that he hopes that the Jordanians and Egyptians would allocate land to safely resettle Palestinians from the destroyed Gaza Strip. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who has indicated that he opposes the Gaza plan, will reportedly postpone his planned visit to Washington amid ongoing concerns, according to diplomatic sources. At least 50% of Jordan's population is of Palestinian origin, and Egypt is the only Arab country with a border crossing into Gaza. President Trump has recently suggested that he could withhold aid to Arab countries if they do not accept his Gaza plan. I'm Ube Shabander for A News, Washington, D.C.
U.S. tariffs on Mexican steel and aluminum are raising concerns among businesses and workers. Mexico's government calls the tariffs unfair, while industries fear job losses.
Uncertainty is growing in Mexico after the U.S. announced a 25% tariff on steel and aluminium imports. The Mexican government criticized the move, arguing that the U.S. actually has a trade surplus in these metals with Mexico. Business leaders warn that the tariffs could hit the border economy the hardest. Many factories known as maquiladoras depend on steel for manufacturing. The border business bloc says over 100,000 jobs have already been lost in northern Mexico due to economic uncertainty.
At the border, it will surely hit very hard because many maquiladora industries that export their products use steel. We do not know the rules of what type of steel, whether there will be specific conditions. There are many unknowns, and this is creating a lot of uncertainty. In the last few months, here at the border, we have lost more than 45,000 jobs. In the entire northern zone, from Tijuana to Matamoros, more than 100,000 jobs have been lost.
Steel workers also worry the tariffs will lead to more layoffs as production slows.
Tariffs do affect us because they can no longer buy material. It becomes more expensive and production here drops, so there will be no more work.
The tariffs are set to take effect in March. Mexico has not yet announced if it will impose retaliatory tariffs on U.S. steel or aluminium.
The European Union has vowed firm and proportionate countermeasures after Donald Trump's decision to impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to the United States.
The European Union has condemned US President Donald Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports, set to take effect on March 4th. EU leaders have vowed firm countermeasures. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have criticised the tariffs as bad for business and harmful to consumers. She pledged that the EU would not let the decision go unanswered and that it would protect its economic interests. The EU has a significant stake in this dispute, as steel exports to the US account for around $3 billion annually.
We deeply regret these decisions and announcements. The EU sees no justification for the imposition of tariffs on our exports, which is economically counterproductive, especially given the deeply integrated production chains established through our extensive transatlantic trade and investment ties. Tariffs are taxes, bad for businesses, worse for consumers.
European Union Trade Commissioner added that while the EU would protect its businesses and workers, it is committed to dialogue and finding a mutually beneficial solution. The US move comes amid rising trade tensions globally. Trump signed proclamations on Monday, raising the US tariff on aluminum from 10% to 25% and eliminating country exceptions and product-specific exclusions. US President also hinted at future tariffs on cars, semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, despite potential retaliation from other countries.
Egg prices are soaring across the US as a worsening bird flu outbreak and supply chain issues tighten availability, leading retailers to impose purchase limits. Experts warn that situation may persist as the virus continues to disrupt production nationwide.
A tightening supply chain and a worsening bird flu outbreak are driving egg prices higher across the US, forcing retailers to impose purchase limits. In grocery stores, customers are finding restrictions on egg purchases, with some limited to 1 dozen per person. Supply chain expert explains that eggs are a highly inelastic commodity, meaning that demand remains steady even when supply decreases, leading to higher costs.
This is going to take time for those systems to be in line and for us to actually get a break. Typically in the past, in the historical view of the virus, we've seen it stop when we've seen it peak and fall around the migratory flights. But we are not seeing that anymore. We are seeing a more prevalent disease state. What we have seen is that even the most robust biosecurity systems that in the past have been demonstrated to be effective are not stopping the outbreak now.
The H5N1 bird flu virus has already wiped out millions of laying hens, reducing egg supplies and contributing to rising prices. The outbreak has also infected nearly 70 people, mostly farm workers, since April last year.
I saw one store, Trader Joe's, that limited it to 1 dozen, but their prices were cheaper than a lot of other places. Their price, I happened to look, theirs was $4.99, and I think Walmart's was $6 something. So I understand why they're doing it. I do understand. I'm not happy about it, but I do understand.
Even the most robust biosecurity systems have been unable to contain the outbreak, raising concerns about long-term supply stability.
Natural gas storage in Europe has fallen below 50%, a significant drop from 67% occupancy rate of last year. The decline raises concerns about the region's energy security and its ability to meet future demand.
Natural gas storage, a vital component of Europe's energy security, has dropped to approximately 49%, a significant decrease from the 67% occupancy rate at the same time last year. The EU's annual natural gas consumption exceeds 400 billion cubic metres, a significant amount in relation to Europe's total storage capacity of around 113 billion cubic metres. Among the 27 EU member states, 18 have natural gas storage facilities, which are crucial for managing supply and ensuring energy security. Storage levels are being closely monitored amid concerns that the market may tighten this summer as Europe faces increased demand to replenish its shrinking gas reserves. Among EU countries, France, one of the region's largest energy consumer, holds the lowest natural gas storage occupancy rate at 29.85%. The country is also failing to meet the European Commission's new target for natural gas storage, remaining well below the 90% target set for November 2025. While France struggles with its energy management, some EU countries are faring better, with Portugal's gas storage fully stocked, followed by Sweden at 88% and Spain at 69%. These varying levels shows the differences in preparedness across the region. Once reliant on Russian gas, the EU's imports from Russia have drastically reduced due to the ongoing war in Ukraine. As a result, the amount of Russian gas transported to Europe via pipelines fell by 28.4% in 2023 compared to 2022, reaching just 14.6 billion cubic metres, according to data from the Ukrainian government. Additionally, the natural gas transit agreement between Russia and Ukraine expired on December 31st, 2024. To ensure energy security, EU countries have turned to liquefied natural gas imports and implemented efficiency measures. Researchers say that current EU gas storage levels shows the failure of gas security policies since the 2022 crisis. Experts predict a gas shortage by the end of winter, potentially leading to costly policies that could trigger a global rush to replenish supplies, impacting the EU as well as neighbouring regions Asia and Latin America. The energy crisis is far from over, with long-term challenges ahead for Europe.
In Ukraine, a Russian missile attack on Kyiv early Wednesday morning resulted in at least one civilian death and 3 injuries. That's according to Ukrainian officials, who say a 9-year-old child is one of those wounded. A series of powerful explosions shook the capital and sparked multiple fires across the city. The strike comes after US President Donald Trump says he had been in contact with Kyiv and Russian President Vladimir Putin with calls for renewed peace negotiations. The United States and the United Kingdom have refused to sign a global declaration on inclusive and sustainable artificial intelligence at the AI Action Summit in Paris. The move is seen as a major setback to the summit's ambition to build an international consensus around the new technology.
The Paris AI Summit brought together representatives from nearly 100 countries to create a unified framework for the ethical and sustainable development of artificial intelligence. More than 70 governments, including France, China, India, and the European Union, have endorsed the declaration, stressing the importance of AI being open, transparent, secure, and beneficial to all. However, the absence of the US and the UK from the list of signatories has raised questions. While neither country provided an immediate explanation, a spokesperson for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer stated that the UK engages in global AI discussions but prioritises national interests. London did, however, sign a separate Coalition for Sustainable AI initiative. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking at the summit, criticised Europe's stringent AI regulations, warning they could stifle innovation.
Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place, but it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation. Meanwhile, for smaller firms, navigating the GDPR means paying endless legal compliance costs or otherwise risking massive fines.
France's Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot downplayed the US decision, calling it understandable and stating that discussions remain open for further participation. The next edition of the summit is set to take place in India.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also warns a ceasefire in Gaza will end on Saturday at noon if Hamas does not release the remaining hostages. He added that the military is prepared to resume intense fighting until Hamas is defeated.
The decision that I passed unanimously in the cabinet is this. If Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end, and the military will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated.
Dozens of aid trucks are waiting to enter Gaza, but drivers say they have been stranded in Egypt's city of Arish, just outside of the Rafah border. It follows the latest Hamas and Israel standoff during the agreed ceasefire.
Aid trucks filled with tents and supplies are piling up in Egypt's city of Arish near the Rafah border. It comes as political tensions between Hamas and Israel continue to derail efforts to deliver crucial assistance to Gaza. Jordanian truck driver Ahmed Hussein says he's been waiting for nearly a month to deliver his goods.
We arrived almost a month ago with tents for Gaza, but no aid has been allowed in. Most trucks are sent back from the Rafah crossing, and only a few get through. The claim that 200 or 300 trucks are entering daily is false. We are stuck here in Arish with no support from the Red Crescent or customs. It's a political decision, and we are just waiting for relief.
Hamas has announced it would halt the release of Israeli hostages because it claims Israel is blocking vital humanitarian aid during the ceasefire deal which began on the 19th of January. However, Israel denies this accusation and says it's fulfilling its obligations, claiming 600 aid trucks enter Gaza daily, carrying food, water, medical supplies and shelter items. Aid groups report increased humanitarian assistance since the ceasefire began. Meanwhile, what's sitting on the trucks in Egypt are 60,000 mobile homes, 200,000 tents and heavy machinery to clear rubble.
Bolivia remains on high alert after intense rains have swept through the country, leaving 24 dead and hundreds displaced. La Paz has been the worst affected area, with flooding submerging homes and forcing evacuations. The Bolivian Meteorology Service (SENAMHI) has issued an orange alert warning of rising water levels in multiple rivers for the next 10 days. According to reports, overflowing rivers have forced residents to seek refuge in a church in the northern town of Tipuani. 8 out of 9 regions have been affected. Authorities warn that heavy rains may continue into early March. The Pakistan Navy's multinational exercise Aman 2025 wrapped up in the northern Arabian Sea. 16 nations took part in the drill in a bid to strengthen maritime security.
Pakistan's Navy concluded exercise Aman 2025 after days of naval drills and strategic discussions in the North Arabian Sea. The exercise, which began last week, is held every 2 years to enhance maritime security and international cooperation. This year, 60 nations participated, including Bangladesh, China, Indonesia, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and the US. The Navy stated that the event demonstrated Pakistan's commitment to peace under the motto "Together for Peace." Chief of Army Staff General Asim Munir observed naval operations and maneuvers during the International Fleet Review on board Pakistan's ship Mo-Awin. Commanding Officer PNS Mo-Awin, Captain Humayun Yaqub, highlighted the exercise's expansion, noting it had grown from 28 nations in 2007 to 60 in 2025. The event featured warships, aircraft and special forces, where participants engaged in strategic discussions on maritime security.
Tourists in Turkey can step back in a time as the Roman baths courtyard of Stratonikia, known as a city of gladiators, after archaeological excavations have restored several columns. This work is part of the continuous preservation work as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Stratonikia, one of the largest marble cities in the world, has been a focal point for archaeological research since excavations began in 1977. The city, with its rich history spanning from the Hellenistic, Roman and Byzantine eras to the Medes, Beylik, Ottoman and Republic periods, continues to reveal new findings year after year. Professor Bilal Saud, head of the Stratonikia excavation team, shared the progress made at the site.
We have been conducting archaeological digs, restorations and surveys on a variety of ancient structures, including the Roman bath complex. The recent work in the Roman bath area focuses on the palaestra, or the sports area, which has been excavated in detail over the last 2 years. In the recent excavations, the team uncovered 36 columns from the bathhouse's courtyard. Last year, we completed the excavation of the columns and all associated materials. With the intact materials from these columns, we've successfully reconstructed them, placing their upper structures back in place.
Visitors to the site will now be able to walk through and admire the complete Roman-era columns, along with their decorative elements, offering a glimpse into the past. The project has unveiled layers of history, spanning from the 1st to the 7th century AD, reflecting various additions and alterations to the structure over time. This restoration effort is part of the Heritage for Future project, which aims to protect and preserve Turkey's ancient treasures for future generations.
Thousands of visitors gathered in Sri Lanka's capital Colombo to see the spectacular annual spiritual festival. The streets came alive with elephants, vibrant lights, energetic dancers, and a display of tradition, making it a night to remember.
Decorated elephants danced through Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo, on Tuesday to celebrate the annual Navampera festival. The streets were filled with the sounds of drums, and colorful lights lit up the sky. The 2-day Buddhist event is a celebration of culture and spirituality. The event showcases traditional dances and musical performances and is usually held during the full moon in February.
This is an occasion where we can show our traditions to foreigners. This is very important for a sector like tourism. It's also an opportunity for people to go out and enjoy themselves.
Organizers say millions of people go to watch the colorful display, and around 10,000 tourists visit especially to experience it.
It is my first experience, and it's a privilege to be part of the whole culture of Sri Lanka and to be assaulted by my senses with all the noise and the colours and the smells and the joy. So thank you for this lovely privilege.
The carnival also fosters unity between communities as Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians all gather to display their cultural heritage in the process.
You are watching A News. Thank you for staying with us.